handshake was supposed to bring two worlds together. Instead, it shattered the mind of an alien general and accidentally created the most dangerous diplomatic crisis in galactic history. Dr. Lisa Carter had been preparing for this moment her entire career. Standing in the gleaming white laboratory aboard Earth's newest space station, she checked her equipment one final time. Today would mark humanity's first official diplomatic meeting with an alien species. The weight of history pressed down on her shoulders as she adjusted. The neural interface device that would supposedly allow peaceful communication. The Zephyrian Empire had sent their most respected military leader, General Vextar, to represent their people. Through months of careful long-distance communication, both sides had agreed to meet halfway between their worlds on this neutral space station. The general was known throughout his empire for his wisdom, discipline, and unwavering commitment to honor. Lisa's team had worked day and night to understand Zephyrian greeting customs. According to their research, the aliens traditionally shared thoughts and emotions through a brief mental connection during first meetings. It was their way of establishing trust and showing respect. The problem was that humans didn't naturally possess this ability. That's where Lisa's device came in. The neural interface was designed to bridge the gap between human and Zephyrian minds, allowing for the traditional greeting to take place. She had tested it countless times on computer simulations, and everything looked perfect on paper. But as she would soon learn, reality had different plans. The airlock hissed open and General Vextar stepped into the laboratory. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. The alien commander was magnificent to behold, standing nearly 8 feet tall with skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. His 4 powerful arms moved with precise military grace, and his large, intelligent eyes held the wisdom of countless battles and diplomatic victories. The general's aide, a smaller but equally impressive Zephyrian, followed closely behind. Both aliens wore ceremonial robes that shimmered with colors Lisa had never seen before. The very air around them seemed to hum with energy, and she could feel the power radiating from their advanced technology. General Vextar approached slowly, his movements deliberate and respectful. He had clearly studied human customs as carefully as Lisa had studied his. When he spoke, his voice was deep and melodious, translated through their universal communication device. Dr. Carter of Earth, I am honored to meet you. My people have traveled far to begin this relationship between our worlds. Shall we proceed with the traditional greeting of understanding? Lisa nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. She had practiced this moment hundreds of times, but the reality of standing before such an imposing alien leader made her hands shake slightly. She reached for the neural interface device, a sleek headset that would connect both their minds for just a few moments. General Vextar, I'm deeply honored by your presence. Please allow me to prepare the connection device. This will help us share the traditional greeting your people value so highly. The general nodded approvingly and positioned himself according to the instructions Lisa's team had provided. His aide watched carefully, ready to assist if needed. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Lisa placed the neural interface on her head first, feeling the gentle tingling sensation as it calibrated to her brain patterns. The device hummed quietly, processing her thoughts and emotions in preparation for the connection. She then carefully fitted the alien-adapted version to General Vextar's crystalline head structure. The general stood perfectly still, showing the discipline and control his people were famous for. His 4 arms remained at his sides and his breathing was slow and steady. Lisa admired his composure, wishing she felt half as confident as he appeared. The connection will begin in 3, 2, 1, Lisa announced, activating the device. At first, everything seemed normal. The gentle hum of the machine filled the room, and both participants remained calm and focused. Lisa felt a strange tingling in her mind as the device began creating the bridge between their consciousness. Then something went terribly wrong. Instead of the gentle, controlled mental exchange the device was designed to create, Lisa felt her mind suddenly flood with chaotic energy. Every emotion she had ever experienced seemed to amplify and rush toward the connection point. Her memories of childhood, her fears about the mission, her excitement about meeting aliens, her worries about her family back on Earth, everything poured out at once. The neural interface, which had worked perfectly in simulations, couldn't handle the complexity and intensity of real human consciousness. The device began overheating, sending uncontrolled bursts of Lisa's emotional and mental energy directly into General Vextar's highly sensitive nervous system. The general's eyes widened in shock. His crystal-like skin began to glow with an unnatural light as his mind was flooded with alien thoughts and feelings. Zephyrian minds were built for order, discipline, and careful mental control. They had never encountered the chaotic, emotional, creative storm that was human consciousness. General Vextar stumbled backward, his forearms flailing as he tried to process the overwhelming flood of human experiences. Lisa watched in horror as the powerful alien leader's composure completely shattered. His aide rushed forward, calling out in their native language with clear concern and alarm. The neural interface sparked and smoked before shutting down completely. Lisa ripped the headset from her own head, her mind reeling from the feedback. She felt dizzy and confused, with strange new thoughts that didn't seem to belong to her floating through her consciousness. General Vexitar collapsed to one knee, his breathing heavy and labored. His crystalline skin flickered with colors that Lisa somehow knew represented confusion and distress. The disciplined military bearing he had shown moments before was completely gone, replaced by the look of someone whose entire world had been turned upside down. The aide helped the general to his feet, speaking rapidly in Zephyrian while shooting worried glances at Lisa. It was clear that something had gone very, very wrong with humanity's first diplomatic greeting. Lisa approached cautiously, her hands raised in a gesture of peace and concern. "General, I'm so sorry. Something malfunctioned with the device. Please let me help you." But the general stepped back, his eyes now holding a mixture of confusion, anger, and something that looked almost like fear. When he spoke, his voice was shaky and uncertain, completely different from the confident commander who had entered the room just minutes before. The perfect first contact that both species had planned for so carefully had become a disaster, and Lisa realized with growing dread that the consequences of this failure might affect the future of both their worlds. General Vextar sat alone in his private quarters aboard the massive Zephyrian command ship, his forearms trembling as he pressed his palms against his crystalline temples. The silence that usually brought him peace now felt like torture. Every time he tried to meditate, human thoughts invaded his mind like unwelcome intruders. 3 days had passed since the disastrous first contact, and the general's condition was getting worse, not better. Images of Earth's blue oceans flickered through his consciousness, mixed with memories that weren't his own. He saw human children playing in parks, couples holding hands under starlight, and soldiers crying over fallen friends. These emotional experiences were completely foreign to his ordered Zephyrian mind. His aide, Commander Thera, watched from the doorway with growing concern. In all her years serving under the general, she had never seen him in such a state. Zephyrian military leaders were trained from childhood to maintain perfect mental discipline. They could withstand torture, navigate complex battle strategies, and make life-or-death decisions without breaking their composure. But whatever the human had done to him had shattered that legendary control. "General," Thera said softly, stepping into the room, "the High Council is requesting your daily report. They're concerned about the extended silence from the diplomatic mission." Vextar looked up at her, and Thera was shocked by what she saw in his eyes. Gone was the steady confidence that had made him one of the Empire's most respected commanders. Instead, she saw confusion, frustration, and something that looked almost like vulnerability. "I cannot complete the report," the general admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time I try to organize my thoughts in the proper Zephyrian manner, human chaos disrupts my concentration. I see their wars, their love, their art, their pain. How do they function with such disorder in their minds?" Thera had no answer. The Zephyrian way of thinking was built on logic, structure, and emotional control. Their military operations required perfect mental synchronization between all units. If the general couldn't connect to their command network, the entire mission was in jeopardy. Back on the space station, Dr. Lisa Carter was having problems of her own. She sat in the medical bay while Dr. Rodriguez, the mission's head physician, ran yet another brain scan. The neural interface had affected her too, though in different ways than the general. "Your brain patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen," Dr. Rodriguez muttered, studying the readouts. "There are new neural pathways forming, almost like your brain is trying to rewire itself to accommodate alien thought patterns." Lisa rubbed her forehead, feeling the constant low-level headache that had plagued her since the incident. Sometimes she found herself thinking in ways that didn't feel entirely human. Mathematical concepts appeared in her mind with crystal clarity, and she had sudden insights into cosmic physics that should have been beyond her understanding. "Doctor, I keep having these dreams," Lisa said quietly. "I see crystal cities floating in purple skies, and I understand military strategies I've never studied. It's like someone else's memories are mixing with mine." The medical team exchanged worried glances. This was completely outside their experience, and they had no idea how to help either the human or alien victims of the failed experiment. Meanwhile, both governments were growing impatient for answers. Admiral Patterson, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, stormed into the station's command center where Lisa's research team was frantically trying to understand what had gone wrong. "Dr. Carter, we need answers and we need them now," the Admiral barked. "The Zephyrians are threatening to leave, and frankly, I'm starting to think that might be for the best. Your experiment has turned into an international incident." Lisa tried to explain the technical problems with the neural interface, but the Admiral cut her off. "I don't want excuses. I want solutions. Fix whatever you broke or this diplomatic mission is over before it started." The pressure was immense, but Lisa knew that simply reversing the process might be dangerous for both her and the General. The connection they had accidentally created was unlike anything in scientific literature. Severing it wrongly could cause permanent damage to both their minds. On the Zephyrian ship, General Vextar was facing his own political crisis. The High Council had finally received word about the failed greeting ceremony, and they were not pleased. A holographic projection of Chancellor Korath, the Empire's senior military leader, materialized in the General's quarters. "General Vextar," the Chancellor's voice boomed through the room. "Explain to me how our most experienced diplomat allowed himself to be compromised by primitive human technology." The General struggled to stand at attention, but human emotional responses kept interfering with his military training. He felt anger at being called primitive, confusion about his loyalty to his own people, and strangely, a protective feeling toward the human scientist who had accidentally caused this mess. "Chancellor, the humans did not intend harm," Vextar found himself saying, surprising both himself and Thara. "Their scientist was attempting to honor our customs. The failure was technological, not malicious." The Chancellor's crystal features hardened with disapproval. "You defend them? Your thoughts have been contaminated, General. Perhaps it's time to consider ending this mission and returning you to proper medical care." After the hologram disappeared, Vextar slumped in his chair, overwhelmed by conflicting loyalties. His Zephyrian training told him to follow orders and return home for treatment. But the human thoughts in his mind whispered about second chances, forgiveness, and the importance of understanding different perspectives. Commander Thara approached cautiously. "General, what are your orders?" "Should I prepare the fleet for departure?" Vextar closed his eyes, trying to find clarity in the storm of mixed thoughts. He could feel Lisa's determination somewhere in his mind, her desperate desire to fix what had gone wrong and salvage the diplomatic mission. He also sensed her growing understanding of Zephyrian culture, her appreciation for their discipline and honor. "No," he said finally, opening his eyes with new resolve. "We will not abandon this mission, but we cannot continue as we are. I must speak with the human scientist again. Perhaps together we can find a solution that neither of our peoples could discover alone." The decision felt both completely logical and utterly emotional, a combination that would have been impossible for him just days ago. General Vextar was beginning to realize that the accident might have given them something unexpected, a bridge between two very different ways of thinking. But first, they would have to convince both their governments that this strange connection was worth exploring, rather than simply severing. Dr. Lisa Carter woke up in her quarters with tears streaming down her face, though she couldn't understand why. In her dream, she had been standing in a vast crystal cathedral, watching hundreds of Zephyrian soldiers perform a memorial ceremony for their fallen comrades. The grief she felt wasn't her own, but it was so real and powerful that it followed her into waking life. This was the 5th night in a row that she had experienced General Vextar's memories as if they were her own. She saw his childhood training in the military academies, felt his pride when he earned his first command, and shared his deep sense of responsibility for the thousands of soldiers under his care. The emotional weight of his experiences was almost too much to bear. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian command ship, General Vextar was having his own strange awakening. For the first time in his adult life, he found himself humming a melody, something completely unthinkable for a disciplined military commander. The tune was from Lisa's memories, a lullaby her mother had sung to her as a child. The gentle, flowing music brought him an unexpected sense of peace, but along with Lisa's peaceful memories came more challenging ones. He experienced her moments of creative inspiration, the joy she felt when solving complex scientific problems, and her deep emotional connections to family and friends. These feelings were so intense and chaotic that they left him feeling dizzy and confused. Commander Thara found him in the observation deck, staring out at the stars with an expression she had never seen before. "General, you've been standing here for 3 hours. The crew is starting to worry." "Thara," he said without looking away from the viewport. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to see the universe through completely different eyes? To feel emotions so strongly that they guide your decisions instead of logic alone?" The commander was deeply concerned. This kind of philosophical questioning was completely unlike the decisive leader she had served under for years. "Sir, perhaps we should contact the medical team again. These human influences are clearly affecting your judgment." But Vextar shook his head slowly. "No, I don't think they're clouding my judgment. I think they're expanding it. Through the humans' memories, I've seen solutions to problems that pure logic couldn't solve. Her creative thinking offers perspectives our military training never considered." Back on the space station, Lisa was coming to similar realizations. She had requested a private meeting with Dr. Rodriguez to discuss the strange changes in her thinking patterns. "Doctor, something incredible is happening," she explained excitedly. "When I work on complex equations now, I can see patterns and connections I never noticed before. It's like the general's disciplined way of thinking is enhancing my scientific abilities." Dr. Rodriguez looked skeptical. "Lisa, you're talking about fundamental changes to your personality and cognitive processes. That's not enhancement, that's contamination." "But what if it's not contamination?" Lisa insisted. "What if it's evolution? Think about it. We've accidentally created the first true mental bridge between two intelligent species. This could revolutionize how we understand consciousness itself." Despite her enthusiasm, Lisa was also struggling with practical problems. The Zephyrian thought patterns in her mind made her more logical and disciplined, but they also suppressed some of her natural creativity and emotional responses. She felt like she was becoming someone else, and that scared her. The real breakthrough came when both Lisa and General Vexitar had the same dream on the same night. They found themselves in a strange space that existed between their minds, part crystal cathedral, part earth forest. In this shared dreamscape, they could communicate directly without language barriers or cultural misunderstandings. "Dr. Carter," the general said in the dream, his voice echoing strangely in the impossible landscape, "I believe we need to work together to understand what has happened to us." Lisa nodded, feeling relief at finally being able to speak with him directly. "General, I'm so sorry about what my device did to you. I never intended to cause you harm." "I know," he replied, and somehow she could feel his sincerity rather than just hear it. "But perhaps this accident was meant to happen. Through your memories, I've learned about human resilience, creativity, and emotional strength. These are valuable qualities that my people have never fully understood. And through yours, I've gained discipline and strategic thinking abilities I never possessed," Lisa admitted. "But we can't stay connected like this forever. Both our governments are losing patience, and I'm worried about the long-term effects on our minds." In their shared dream state, they began experimenting with their connection, learning to control the flow of thoughts and memories between them. Lisa discovered she could access the general's tactical knowledge while maintaining her own personality. Similarly, Vextar found he could experience human creativity without losing his essential Zephyrian identity. When they woke up, both felt more balanced than they had since the accident. Lisa called for an emergency meeting with the diplomatic team, while General Vextar requested a conference with his senior officers. "I have a proposal," Lisa announced to the gathered Earth officials. "Instead of trying to sever our connection, what if we study it? General Vextar and I are learning to work with this mental bridge rather than against it. We might be able to create a new form of diplomatic communication." Admiral Patterson was not impressed. "Dr. Carter, you're suggesting we base our first alien contact on a laboratory accident. That's hardly a foundation for interstellar relations." But Dr. Rodriguez, who had been monitoring Lisa's brain patterns, spoke up unexpectedly. "Actually, Admiral, Her cognitive abilities have improved dramatically since the connection stabilized. Her problem-solving skills are off the charts, and she's showing enhanced pattern recognition abilities. Meanwhile, on the Zephyrian ship, General Vextar was making a similar case to his reluctant officers. Through this connection, I've gained insights into human military history and strategy that could benefit our entire empire. Their emotional responses, which we've always seen as weakness, actually provide tactical advantages in complex situations. Commander Thara remained skeptical. But sir, the High Council has ordered your return for medical treatment. They consider your condition a security risk. Then we must prove to them that this condition is actually a strategic asset, Vextar replied with new determination. Dr. Carter and I have learned to communicate in ways that transcend language and cultural barriers. Imagine the possibilities for future diplomatic relations. The general's words carried new authority, backed by both Zephyrian military discipline and human emotional conviction. His officers could see that while he had changed, he had not become weaker. If anything, his leadership abilities seemed enhanced by the new perspectives he had gained. As both sides debated the future of the diplomatic mission, Lisa and General Vextar continued their dream meetings, working together to understand and control their unprecedented connection. They were becoming living proof that two very different forms of consciousness could not just coexist, but actually enhance each other. The question now was whether their respective governments would see this as an opportunity or a threat to everything they thought they knew about interspecies relations. 3 weeks had passed since Dr. Lisa Carter and General Vextar began their controlled sessions to understand their mental connection. What started as desperate attempts to fix a diplomatic disaster had evolved into something neither of them could have imagined. They were learning to live with two sets of memories, two ways of thinking, and two completely different emotional systems. Lisa sat in the modified laboratory, electrodes attached to her head while monitoring equipment tracked her brain activity. Across from her, General Vextar remained perfectly still in his meditation pose, his crystalline skin glowing softly as their minds synchronized. They had developed a routine for these sessions, carefully exploring their shared consciousness while maintaining their individual identities. Focus on the tactical problem I'm sending you. Vextar's voice echoed in her mind during one of their sessions. Lisa suddenly saw a 3-dimensional star map showing enemy fleet positions around a disputed planet. Her human instincts immediately began analyzing the situation differently than any Zephyrian commander would. What if we don't engage them directly? Lisa thought back. In human history, we've often won battles by avoiding them entirely. Look at the asteroid field near the third moon. We could hide our ships there and make them think we've retreated. The general was amazed by her suggestion. Zephyrian military doctrine emphasized honor, direct confrontation, and overwhelming force. The idea of using deception and misdirection was completely foreign to their way of thinking. Yet Lisa's strategy was brilliantly effective. Your creative approach just solved a problem that has puzzled our military strategists for months, Vextar admitted with genuine admiration. The enemy would never expect such an unconventional tactic. Meanwhile, Lisa was benefiting equally from their connection. When she worked on complex scientific equations, she found herself approaching problems with the systematic precision that had made Zephyrian technology so advanced. Her research into quantum mechanics suddenly made sense in ways she had never experienced before. It's incredible, she told Dr. Rodriguez during one of their regular checkups. I can see mathematical relationships that were invisible to me before. The general's logical thinking patterns are like having a supercomputer in my brain, but their growing partnership was causing serious concerns among both their peoples. On Earth, Admiral Patterson was receiving daily reports from intelligence analysts who worried that Lisa had been compromised by alien influence. Sir, her psychological profile has changed dramatically, reported Agent Collins, the mission's security chief. She's showing decreased emotional responses and increased logical thinking. Some experts believe she's losing her humanity. The Admiral reviewed the classified reports with growing unease. Earth's government had invested billions in this first contact mission, and the last thing they wanted was their lead scientist being turned into some kind of alien puppet. Similar concerns were being raised on the Zephyrian command ship. Chancellor Korath had dispatched a special investigation team to evaluate General Vextar's fitness for command. Commander Zaith, a cold and calculating officer known for his strict adherence to military protocol, arrived to conduct the evaluation. General Vextar, Commander Zaith announced formally as he entered the general's quarters. The High Council has serious concerns about your mental state. Reports indicate you've been exhibiting emotional responses inappropriate for a Zephyrian military leader. The general stood at attention, but Zaith noticed something different about his posture. There was a subtle relaxation in his stance that would have been unthinkable for a traditional Zephyrian officer. "Commander, I understand their concerns," Vextar replied calmly, "but I believe they fail to see the strategic advantages of this connection. Through Dr. Carter's memories, I've learned about human military tactics that could revolutionize our approach to warfare." Zaith's expression hardened. "You speak of learning from an inferior species. This is exactly what the High Council feared. Your judgment has been compromised by alien contamination." The accusation stung, but Vextar found himself responding with unexpected diplomatic skill, another trait he had learned from Lisa's experiences with human negotiations. "Commander, I respectfully disagree. Consider this. Yesterday I solved a supply chain problem that had been limiting our fleet's operational range. The solution came from combining Zephyrian logistics with human resource management techniques. Our efficiency has improved by 30%. Despite his prejudices, Zaith had to admit that the results spoke for themselves. The general's tactical reports had shown marked improvement, and his strategic recommendations had been brilliant. But the High Council's orders were clear. Back on the space station, Lisa was facing her own interrogation. Admiral Patterson had brought in Dr. Helen Wright, Earth's leading expert in psychological warfare, to evaluate whether Lisa was still mentally fit for duty. "Dr. Carter," Dr. Wright began, her tone clinical and detached, "I need you to explain why you've been advocating for continued cooperation with an alien species that has essentially invaded your mind." Lisa felt a flash of anger, an emotion that felt more intense now that it was filtered through both human and Zephyrian consciousness. "Doctor, that's a gross oversimplification of what's happened. General Vextar didn't invade my mind. We're both victims of a technological accident that we've chosen to turn into an opportunity. But you must admit that your personality has changed significantly," Dr. Wright pressed. "Your colleagues report that you're more withdrawn, less emotionally expressive, and increasingly focused on logical analysis over intuitive thinking." "Yes, I've changed," Lisa acknowledged. "But change isn't always bad. I've gained abilities I never had before, while still remaining essentially myself. Isn't personal growth what humans strive for?" The question hung in the air as both governments struggled with the implications of what their representatives had become. Neither Lisa nor General Vextar were the same people who had entered that laboratory weeks ago. But they weren't less human or less Zephyrian. They were something new, something unprecedented in galactic history. During their evening session, Lisa and Vextar shared their concerns about the mounting pressure from their respective governments. "They want to separate us," Vextar observed sadly in their shared mental space. "Both sides see our connection as a contamination rather than an evolution." "Maybe they're right to be scared," Lisa admitted. "What we've become challenges everything both our species believe about consciousness, identity, and communication. We're living proof that the boundaries between minds aren't as solid as everyone thought. But even as they acknowledged the fears of their peoples, neither of them wanted to give up what they had gained. Their connection had made them more than they were individually, and they were beginning to realize that breaking it might not even be possible anymore. The question was whether they would be allowed to continue their unprecedented partnership, or whether fear and suspicion would force them apart, just when they were learning to truly work together as a unified team. The emergency alarm screaming through the space station shattered the quiet morning like thunder. Dr. Lisa Carter jolted awake in her quarters, immediately feeling General Vextar's heightened alertness through their mental connection. Something was terribly wrong. Admiral Patterson's voice boomed through the station's communication system. "All personnel to battle stations. Unknown hostile ships have entered our sector and are attacking both Earth and Zephyrian vessels." This is not a drill. Lisa rushed to the command center where chaos ruled. Multiple screens showed the same terrifying sight. Dozens of black angular ships unlike anything either species had encountered before. They moved with deadly precision, targeting both human and Zephyrian vessels without discrimination. What do we know about them? Lisa asked breathlessly as she joined the emergency briefing. Nothing good, replied Captain Morrison, the station's military commander. They appeared without warning, ignored all communication attempts, and started firing immediately. Our ships are taking heavy damage, and so are the Zephyrians. Through her connection with General Vextar, Lisa could feel his tactical mind analyzing the situation. The attackers were using advanced technology that neither Earth nor the Zephyrian Empire had seen before. Their weapons cut through defensive shields like they were made of paper, and their ships seemed immune to conventional attacks. Admiral, Lisa said urgently, I need to contact General Vextar immediately. Our mental connection might be the only way to coordinate a defense against these attackers. Patterson looked skeptical, but with Earthships exploding on the screens around them, he was willing to try anything. Do it, but make it fast. Lisa closed her eyes and reached out through their mental link. Immediately she found herself in the Zephyrian command center, seeing through the general's eyes as he coordinated his fleet's desperate defense. General, can you hear me? She thought. Clearly, came his reply, tinged with grim determination. These attackers are unlike anything in our military databases. Their tactics suggest they've been studying both our species for some time. Through their shared consciousness, Lisa and Vextar began analyzing the enemy's attack patterns. Her human intuition combined with his military training revealed something neither species would have noticed alone. The attackers were deliberately trying to prevent any communication between Earth and Zephyrian forces. They're trying to keep us divided, Lisa realized. Look at their formation. They're positioning themselves between our fleets, blocking joint tactical coordination. You're right, Vextar agreed. But our mental connection gives us an advantage they don't know about. We can coordinate attacks without using traditional communication channels. What happened next amazed both command centers. Lisa and General Vextar began working together as if they shared one mind. Through their connection, they developed a battle plan that used both human unpredictability and Zephyrian precision. Admiral Patterson, Lisa called out, her eyes still closed as she maintained the mental link. The general is suggesting a coordinated pincer movement. If our fastest ships attack from the east while his heavy cruisers hit from the west, we can break their formation. The admiral hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. On the Zephyrian command ship, General Vextar was simultaneously coordinating his fleet's movements based on tactical insights flowing from Lisa's human perspective. The joint attack caught the mysterious enemies completely off guard. They had prepared for human chaos or Zephyrian order, but not for the perfect combination of both. Their tight formations crumbled as they tried to respond to tactics they couldn't predict or counter. It's working, Captain Morrison shouted as enemy ships began retreating from several positions. However you two are doing this, keep it up. But the real breakthrough came when Lisa and Vextar pushed their mental connection further than ever before. They began sharing not just thoughts and strategies, but actual sensory input and reflexes. Lisa found herself piloting drone fighters with Zephyrian precision, while Vextar coordinated human ships with intuitive creativity that amazed his own officers. Commander Thara watched in wonder as her general seemed to anticipate enemy movements before they happened, his forearms dancing over control panels with impossible speed and accuracy. Sir, how are you predicting their attack patterns? She asked during a brief lull in the battle. I'm not predicting them, Vextar replied, his voice filled with newfound confidence. Dr. Carter and I are thinking faster than any single mind could manage. We're seeing possibilities that neither human nor Zephyrian consciousness could grasp. Alone, the tide of battle turned decisively when the mysterious attackers realized they were facing something unprecedented. Their advanced AI systems couldn't calculate responses to the hybrid human-Zephyrian tactics being deployed against them. One by one, their ships began withdrawing from the combat zone. As the last enemy vessel disappeared into hyperspace, both fleets found themselves staring at each other across the battlefield. The humans and Zephyrians had just fought side by side, their victory made possible by the very connection their governments had wanted to sever. Admiral Patterson opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian command ship, his voice filled with respect and gratitude. General Vextar, on behalf of Earth, I want to thank you for your assistance. That was the most remarkable tactical coordination I've ever witnessed. The thanks belong to Dr. Carter as much as to me, the general replied. Without our mental connection, neither of our fleets would have survived this encounter. In the aftermath of the battle, both governments were forced to reconsider their positions on the Lisa-Vextar connection. The evidence was undeniable. Their shared consciousness had not weakened them, but had created capabilities that surpassed anything either species could achieve individually. Chancellor. Korath arrived on the space station 3 days later for an unprecedented joint meeting with Earth's leadership. Lisa and General Vextar stood before representatives of both worlds, no longer as accident victims but as pioneers of a new form of consciousness. What you two have accomplished challenges everything we thought we knew about the limits of individual minds, the Chancellor admitted. Your connection saved thousands of lives from both our species. Admiral Patterson nodded in agreement. Dr. Carter, General Vextar, I believe we owe you both an apology. We were so focused on what you might lose that we couldn't see what you had gained. Lisa and Vextar exchanged a look that needed no words. Through their shared experiences, they had become living proof that cooperation could transcend any barrier. Biological, cultural, or psychological. With your permission, Lisa said, addressing both leaders, we'd like to propose the creation of an interspecies consciousness research program. General Vexatar and I have learned to safely create and maintain mental bridges. We could train volunteers from both our species, creating a new form of diplomatic and strategic partnership. The proposal was ambitious and revolutionary, but after witnessing what they had accomplished together, both governments agreed to support the program. What had begun as a diplomatic disaster had evolved into the foundation for unprecedented cooperation between worlds. Years later, historians would mark this moment as the beginning of true interstellar civilization, not because two species had met, but because they had learned to truly understand each other. Lisa Carter and General Vextar had proven that the greatest discoveries sometimes come from the most unexpected accidents, and that the bridge between minds is stronger than any weapon or barrier. Their story became legend, inspiring countless others to look beyond the boundaries of their own consciousness and reach toward the infinite possibilities that arise when different forms of intelligence learn to work as one.